Okay, so far we talked about ratios, which are essentially just a comparison of any two quantities. We looked at how to simplify those, and then we talked about a special type of ratio called a rate, and that's a comparison of two quantities that have different units, okay? So for topic 4, we're going to talk about something called a unit rate, okay? And the definition here is that a unit rate is a special type of rate where the denominator is 1, okay? Unit rates are helpful in many situations, such as comparison shopping, calculating gas mileage, or calculating hourly rate of pay. So when you're dealing with a unit rate, you have to force your denominator to be 1 no matter what. Okay, so if we're comparing two things like pay versus hours, we could take the pay for a big chunk of hours and we could find a unit rate to figure out, okay, well, how much did we make in just 1 hour? If we're talking about gas mileage, we've got a big old chunk of miles and we've got a big old tank of gas. And we could say, okay, comparing this big old chunk of miles to this tank of gas, well, how many miles did we drive on just 1 gallon of gas? Okay, so there is a really useful, nice usefulness to these unit rates. Okay, now a special type of unit rate is called a unit price. So this is a special type of unit rate. Okay, and this one involves just money. So this is the cost per single unit. So you go out and you buy some peanut butter, you get an 18-ounce jar of peanut butter, and it costs however many dollars. We could then break it down and be like, okay, this particular jar of peanut butter costs this many cents or this many dollars per single ounce. Okay, so it's a way to do a lot of like really nice comparisons. Okay. So let's go ahead and look at the next two examples. So example 4 says calculate each unit rate. Make sure to include units with the answer. Anytime you're comparing two rates that have, let me say that again, bless my heart. Anytime you're comparing two quantities that have different units, you need to make sure you include the units in your answer because we need to make sure we know which unit goes with which quantity, okay? So it says here for part A, Macy earned $740 working 40 hours. What is her hourly rate of pay? When we're talking about an hourly rate of pay, this is essentially just a unit rate. We want to know how many dollars were earned in just one single hour. So let's start by just writing this as a regular rate. We would say, okay, we earned $740, or rather, Macy earned $740 working 40 hours. If we want to write this as a unit rate, we need to force our denominator to be 1. And the easiest way to force the denominator to be 1 is to divide it by itself. So we're going to divide the denominator by 40. But we know enough about fractions that if we multiply or divide one value in the fraction by something, we have to mimic that in the other part of the fraction. So I need to divide 740 by 40 as well. Okay? So 40 hours divided by 40, that's easy. That's just 1 hour. And then I will absolutely let you use your calculators for the other division. So as long as you show me this setup right here, you can use your calculator to do the actual division of 740 divided by 40. So let's see what we get. So on the calculator, we had $740. We need to divide it by 40. And we get 18.5. So this is the one time it's totally fine to leave decimals in your answer. So we would say, well, if Macy earned $740 working 40 hours, she ended up earning $18.50 per single hour. You would sometimes also see this written as $18.50 per hour. They mean exactly the same thing. Okay, so we're comparing one unit to a single unit of the other quantity. Okay. Now for part B, it says Jason's Toyota Corolla went 390 miles on 12 gallons of gas. How many miles did Jason drive on average per gallon? Again, if we're wanting to know some quantity per some single unit of the other quantity, it's a unit rate. So let's start by just writing this as a regular old rate. We would say, okay, we had 390 miles on 12 gallons of gas. Okay, in order to write this as a unit rate, we have to force the denominator to be 1, and the easiest way to force a number to be 1 is to divide it by itself. So we're going to divide the denominator by 12, which means I have to divide the numerator by 12 as well. Well, 12 gallons divided by 12 is just 1 gallon. And then you can use your calculator. We need to figure out what 390 divided by 12 is. So we don't love our calculator setup, but we use the technology we have. So 300 divided by 12, or wait, 390, excuse me, divided by 12 is 32.5. So that tells me Jason gets 32.5 miles to the gallon. All right. And again, you could also see it 32.5 miles per single gallon. Either notation is fine. They really mean the same thing. Okay. Now, for example 5, we're going to look at the unit prices. Okay. So when you're dealing with unit prices, you're finding out the cost per single unit of some kind of an item, okay? And sometimes you'll do comparison shopping with unit prices. So that's what we're going to look at in part B of this example. So for example 5, it says find each unit price. Make sure to include units with the answer, okay? So for part A, it says the cost to rent a car for 5 days is $170. What is the cost per day to rent the car? Well, we would start by just writing a regular old unit rate. So we want to always take cost. This is always cost divided by units. So regardless of the order they give you the numbers in, always do cost divided by units. So we would take the $170 and divide it by 5 days. Now, a unit price is a special type of unit rate. So we need to make sure our denominator is exactly 1. And the best way to force a number to be 1 is to divide it by itself. And if I divide my denominator by 5, I need to divide my numerator by 5. So that tells me that my denominator is going to be 1 day. And all I have to do is divide 170 by 5 to figure out what the cost per day is. So there we go. So we have 170 divided by 5, and we get 34. So that tells me the cost to rent this car is $34 a day. And that is a unit price. It's the cost per unit where the unit is a day. Okay. Now for part B, we actually have 2 things we're looking at. Let me scroll up a little bit, make sure I have plenty of room. Okay, it says there are 2 bags of tortilla chips at your local grocery store. The first bag is $3.99 for 11 ounces. Okay. And the second bag is 16 ounces for $5.99. Find each unit price and then decide which bag is the better deal. So when you're doing comparison shopping or deciding what is a better deal, you always want the product that has the lower unit price. So that's the cheaper cost per whatever, in this case, ounces. So let's talk about the 11-ounce bag. And you do just use OZ as your abbreviation for ounces. So you always take cost divided by units. So we want to take $3.99 and divide it by 11 ounces. So remember, the quickest way to force this denominator to be 1 is to just divide the denominator by 11 and then do the same thing in the numerator. So that makes my denominator just 1 ounce. And then my numerator, we're probably going to get an icky number, and that's okay. We know how to round. So we would take $3.99 and divide it by the 11 ounces. So that's going to tell us the cost per ounce. Whoops, 11. And let's go 3 decimal places here. So I get 0.3627. If I round 3 decimal places, this 7 right here causes my 2 to go up. So this is going to be 0.363. Okay. All right. So we get $0.363. Okay. Now let's look at the 16-ounce bag. So far we know the 11-ounce bag is a little bit more than 36 cents per ounce. Let's see how that compares to the 16-ounce bag. So the 16-ounce bag we knew was $5.99. We want to divide that by 16 ounces. So essentially what we're doing is we're dividing top and bottom by 16. So my denominator is going to be 1 ounce, and then we'll go to the calculator. We need to do 5.99 divided by 16. So, whoops, no, I didn't mean to do that. Sorry about that. All right, so we need to do $5.99 divided by the 16 for 16 ounces, and we get 0.3743, so I'm going to round this 0.374, and really we could have gone 2 decimal places here and we could have seen a difference, so 0.374. There we go. So this one is $0.374. So this one is approximately 36 cents per ounce. This one is approximately 37 cents per ounce. So which one has the lower cost per unit? That would be this one. So this one right here, this one is cheaper. So this is the better buy. It's not much cheaper. It's like less than well, it's about a penny cheaper per ounce. Okay. But it is still cheaper. All right. So that is how you do a better buy comparison. Determine which one's the better deal. Just simply find unit price and figure out which one has the cheaper unit price or the lower unit price. Okay. So that is unit rates and unit price. And then last up, we'll just do a couple word problems and that'll be it for this section.